So welcome everybody to the latest JoDel webinar. This is the first webinar after everyone is coming back to school or university. So it's really, really exciting. Today is the 5th of September 2022. And it's my absolute pleasure to be talking to Elton LaClare live from Japan as we speak, live from Sojo in Japan. Now, Elton has been a teacher for a number of years, many years. I'm sure he'll tell you about that in a second. And he's taught in places like Canada and Korea, and now he's in Japan. And I'm really excited about today's webinar because he's going to be talking about a really interesting 30-day challenge to help get our students speaking in class using the tool ZenGengo. But he's very much appearing today as a teacher. He's not, you know, there's no sort of promotion about ZenGengo here. It's all about the 30-day challenge and focusing on the pedagogy and on speaking practice. And what a great idea, I think, to start off the year. If you are starting off the school year right now, what a great idea to get yourselves involved in this 30-day challenge, because it can be a fantastic way of motivating your learners who maybe have forgotten one or two things over the summer break, or maybe they've been focused on other things. And what a great way to bring them back into the classroom or outside of the classroom with a bang, with a great challenge whereby they can compete and compare and practice their speaking, which maybe they've forgotten about a little bit over the summer break. So it's my absolute pleasure to be introducing Elton right now. Welcome to the webinar, Elton. If you maybe introduce yourself, give a little bit more background, and then start us off by talking all about the 30-day challenge using ZenGengo. I will then mute my video and my microphone, and I'll be here, and then I'll put some questions to Elton when they come up. And I really hope that everyone really enjoys this webinar, because it's something which I think we can all get involved in at the start of the year to really start off the year with a bang. So over to you, Elton, and thank you for agreeing to come on the webinar.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I really appreciate that introduction, and I think you touched upon some points that I really wanted to bring up during the next hour. One of them is about a phenomenon that I think every teacher will be aware of, not only language teachers, but perhaps uniquely language teachers, is that students are very unlikely to be practicing their foreign language studies on their own over an extended break like the summer vacation. They always need something to get them started in the new year, and certainly something that we notice with our students in Japan is that speaking is probably the deficit skill. It's one that really can only be practiced, you know, in the classroom in a communal environment. But there are some ways to help get the students doing a little bit on their own outside of class time, and that's what I hope to talk about today. I'm just peering out my window at the moment. As Joe mentioned, I'm in Japan, and unfortunately, a storm is coming, and I can see very ominous looking clouds coming over the mountains, and I hope that at no point during the next hour I get cut off, but if I do, that's what's happened. So without any further ado, maybe I'll try to get us started. Having a little bit of trouble moving my screen here. I'm going to perhaps just briefly stop my share and try to start again. Seems to be frozen. Okay, there we are. Well, I'd like to start out actually with a bit of a question. And what I would like to know is about something that you've started, perhaps recently or something in the past year. It doesn't need to be something that you're still doing, but something that you started. And perhaps Joe, I can put that question to you first. Can you tell us something that you've started in the past year?
Absolutely. So I've started going to Dublin to run courses with European teachers from all over Europe and teaching them on how they can use technology effectively to enhance teaching and learning, which has been a huge amount of fun. And I've had this sort of like European experience that I was used to before the pandemic, but as a result of the pandemic and Brexit, it's now not very easy for me to just jump on a plane and to go to Europe and do work, but I can still go to Dublin because of the agreement we have between the UK and Ireland. So that's something which I've started and I'm really, really enjoying at the moment.
Well, that sounds great. One of the things that I've started, I think I'm like a lot of people in that, especially around the new year, I often start something. And this year, I've started studying Korean a little bit more diligently. My wife is Korean, and though we live in Japan, it's still always a priority for me to try to improve my ability to communicate with her in her native language. So that's something that I've started. Anything kind of along the lines, Joe, of a New Year's resolution or anything like that?
Okay, so I'm just about to start a podcast, as in I've been commissioned to produce a podcast for a group of teachers in Ireland, which I'm really, really excited about. And we're going to be doing the first recording today. So I suppose my resolution for the new academic year is to try and produce the best possible podcast that we can, and to promote it as much as possible, to get as many people as possible listening to the podcast, to get as many downloads as possible. And it's always very exciting, I think, to start a new project, to get your teeth into it and see where it takes us, because you never know where these projects can take, particularly with the podcast, the way that you have no idea where it's going to be listened to or downloaded from. And you can check on social media and see people tweeting about, oh, I'm listening to such a podcast in such a place. It's once it's out there in the wild, you have no idea who is going to be listening and communicating with you and sharing ideas. So that's something which I'm really, really excited about as well. So lots of things happening at the moment.
Okay, yeah, excellent. I think that that kind of touches on something that's, I think, quite important to the discussion that I want to have going forward, which is that at the beginning of something, there's always lots of enthusiasm, but unfortunately, that enthusiasm isn't always sustained over a long period of time. I think that's something that most people who make New Year's resolutions will be aware of. They get started with great intentions, but over time things peter out. And I'm kind of interested in why that happens. And about how we can maybe continue to pursue our virtuous habits over a longer period of time. And I'm going to try to tie that together with this idea that I'm talking about today, which is the 30-day challenges. So, Joe, have you ever come across a 30-day challenge? Or can you give me an example of one you've come across, maybe on social media or somewhere else?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've seen examples of these sorts of challenges, not necessarily the 30-day challenge, but maybe a 365-day challenge where people are supposed to take a photograph of every single day, showing some aspect of their life. So, of course, you could do that over a 30-day period as well. And it's been very interesting to see the sorts of photos that people choose to take. They can be quite arty sometimes, or they can be from different angles, that sort of thing, rather than just, like a straightforward photograph. So having that challenge every single day means that you have to, well, I would imagine you'd want to sort of shake things up a bit and be a bit more creative. I think the idea of doing a 30-day challenge whereby maybe you're going for a walk every single day, or you're doing some sort of exercise as well, is a good thing to do, particularly if you're doing it with someone else as well, I think. So if you can compare your the challenge you're doing with the same challenge that someone else is doing, you can sort of encourage each other. I think particularly in relation to exercise, or if you want to lose a bit of weight or things like that, then I think that having someone supporting you is a really good idea. So those are a few. There we are, perfect.
Exactly. Okay.
About weight loss. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, well, I mean, these are the normal themes, right? Things like weight loss, get fit, meditation, mindfulness, healthy eating, stopping smoking. They generally revolve around some kind of virtuous habit. And I normally come across these on social media. I think that's probably the most common place that I encounter them. You see them quite often in Facebook, or Facebook seems to know that I have a weakness for 30-day challenges and therefore feeds a lot of them to me. But yeah, you can see them all over the place. They're not unique, so it's something that most students should be familiar with, and perhaps they've even tried one or two. I think one of the differences between a 30-day challenge and something like a New Year's resolution is that because there's a fixed time frame. And usually quite a specific goal that actually comes externally. There's some of the organization and planning is done for you. That maybe it's a little bit easier to follow through on this type of thing than it is to follow through on a New Year's resolution, which are usually for an indefinite period of time and often don't have a clear fixed goal. So I think that that's something that I think works to your advantage. When you're planning something, it's very hard to make and stick to a goal. But if there's a defined program with an outcome and a specific duration, then I think it makes it a little bit easier for people to follow through, for them to stick with it over time. Now, about the 30-day challenge, there's a philosophy behind them. And the philosophy is pretty simple, and it's this: by making some small change or small addition to your daily routine, you can achieve a noticeable result over the course of 30 days or a month. And in order to work, a 30-day challenge has to be something that's a little bit inspiring, something that's achievable, and something that's likely to show positive results if completed earnestly. I think all of those things are very key. Okay, if someone cannot achieve the goal of a 30-day challenge during the 30 days, then they're bound to be disappointed. So I think this is about small steps. As language teachers, I think we always want to come upon the one thing that's going to work, that's going to help our students learn the language. But as someone who's been teaching language for more than 20 years, I know that doesn't really exist, or it doesn't exist for all students. And I think it's about finding little things that work, that help, and bringing them to the students. And hopefully achieving a positive result. So that's the basic idea behind the 30-day challenge. Just something small that people can do every day for a month, and by the end of it, they should notice some positive difference. So that's what these challenges are aiming for. And looking beyond the 30 days, what are the benefits that can come to the student? I think the first one is developing a good habit. I think that's one of the key aspects of a 30-day challenge. The 30-day challenge in itself should be good, and they should achieve something. But what's really great is if whatever habit has been instilled, a virtuous habit, is sustained beyond the 30 days. I think that's what people really hope for. I've been interested in habit formation for quite a while in my own personal life and as a teacher. And there's quite a bit of research into this about how long it takes to build habits. Most of the research says slightly different things. But I think one of the benefits of this is that if someone, a language student, can pursue something over 30 days, there's a good chance that the habit can stick with them. Obviously, the other benefit is that they improve their skills. Okay, practicing something earnestly for 30 days should result in an improvement in skills. And of course, success is motivating. So the sense of achievement, the sense of accomplishment that comes from completing a 30-day challenge is also one of the main benefits. Okay. Motivation is one of the hardest things for language learners, and it's extremely important. Language learning isn't something that can be achieved usually for most people in a few months, and for many, not even in a few years. So the ability to stay motivated, I think, is really important. And a good 30-day challenge can do that. Okay, success motivates. And so if the students can experience some success during the course of a challenge, that will be helpful in their language learning going forward. Okay, so that's kind of talked about 30-day challenges in general, the philosophy behind them, and what students might hope to achieve. I want to get a bit more specific now and talk about my 30-day challenge, which is the one that I've been running for the past couple of years. And I've also helped teachers at other universities to coordinate this. Just a few details about the type of student that I'm dealing with. I teach primarily first and second year students, university students, although these challenges are also open to third and fourth year students, and even to faculty and staff who want to get involved. Most of my learners would be considered a beginner. They would be A1 to A2 SEFRA level. If there's anyone out there who's not familiar with these levels, those are definitely on the beginner end of the spectrum. And I think there's a point actually to be explored here a little bit. Something like a 30-day challenge can be really beneficial to a novice. Language learning is like just about any other endeavor, in that you show the most results in the least amount of time when you're a novice. You can go from zero proficiency to semi-proficiency much faster than you can go from, say, intermediate proficiency to expert proficiency. That's not to say that 30-day challenges are only for novices. They definitely can be done for higher level students, but they probably need to be a little bit more targeted, a little bit more specific. When we get into the details, you'll see that the challenges in this particular 30-day challenge that I run are definitely focused on beginners, or at least people who don't have much experience speaking. As I've mentioned a couple times already, this particular 30-day challenge was focused on speaking skills. I find that it's one of the fastest areas where students can show improvement, especially among Japanese learners who really don't have much experience with speaking. So to focus definitely specifically on speaking, it's an area where students can notice an improvement over a relatively short period of time. The last point here is just kind of a bit of a side note, really. I first started this during a remote teaching context when students were even more starved of spoken interaction, spoken production than they are normally. But it's not something that's just limited to a remote teaching context. I've kept doing it even though we've been face-to-face with the students this past year. And I intend to continue doing it into the future. So my 30-day challenge was quite simple. I asked the students to do a 1-minute recording task. It's really up to the individual teacher about how the students should prepare and execute this task. I left it quite open for the students. I told them that it was okay to write something down, rehearse it, prepare a little bit, or maybe just write some points down on a piece of paper that they wanted to cover, or it was okay to just push the record button and freestyle. So I think it depends on what the teacher is trying to achieve. If they want to give the students the freedom to approach the task in a variety of ways, or if they want to hone in on something very specific, they want to get a spontaneous production from the student. There are ways to accommodate any of those approaches. In my challenge, students had the opportunity to re-record. I've always been really interested in the role of recording speech acts in language learning, and for the students to listen to them, reflect on them, think about how they might improve a little bit, try again. That's something that I've been very interested in even before I came across 30-day challenges. So there's an opportunity to re-record. And something that I recently started doing is to provide a model response that students can see after submission. It's really just something that the students can look at. They can see another model for how to approach the task. It's just a way to give them a few more ideas about how they might want to do a task like that. Depending on how you configure the 30-day challenge using the platform, there can also be the opportunity to download the audio files so that the students can keep them in a sort of portfolio if that's something that's important to the teacher. And you can see on the screen, there is a logo for the platform that I used, which is ZenGengo. I'll dive in a little bit more specifically with that later. But that's the platform that I used to create the challenges and distribute them to the students and to provide feedback for them as well. And here's an example of what it looked like to the students. On the left-hand side of the screen, that's what the students would see when they would click on an individual challenge. There would be some kind of prompt. Okay, it could be questions. In this case, it's several questions. And then there's a recorder that indicates that they have 1 minute in which to produce their answers. Based on how it's configured by the teacher, it's also possible to enable students to pause. Some students, really appreciate that thinking time. They can pause, think a little bit about what they want to say next, and then start the recording again. It really depends on what the teacher's looking for. In my case, I didn't want them to pause. Japanese students often agonize a lot over what they say. I thought they would probably already be planning quite a lot, and I thought it was better for them to just go for it. So once the minute started, they had that amount of time in which to get out what they wanted. As I mentioned before, they have the opportunity to re-record. Okay, so they can record it if they don't like it, or if they're not satisfied in one way or another, they can do it again. And when they submit it, what they see is what's on the right side of the screen. They can listen to their submission again. Okay. Then below it, there's a little video, which is the example, the model response that I mentioned on the last slide. So it's just an example of how someone might approach that answer. And then the ability to download the submission, which I also mentioned a moment ago, if they want to include it as part of a portfolio or something. So that's basically how it looks to the student. And for the teacher, this is what they would see. Okay, from the teacher dashboard, the teacher would look at the submissions and they can go through them sort of one by one, listen to what the student has said, and then provide the feedback. And in my opinion, the feedback is really important. Okay, it's not absolutely necessary that the teacher has to provide feedback on the students' challenges, but for the particular challenge that I run, that's a big part of the motivation for the students, is getting some personalized feedback from the teacher. So this is really easy in the platform. Basically, you can see in the teacher's feedback area, there's a red box around several icons, and basically feedback can be provided in 3 modalities. You can write. Okay, you can just write a message to the student, good job, or something a little bit more personal than that. Or you can record an audio file and send it to the student, or you can record a video. So all 3 of those are available. And a little bit more toward the right side of the screen, you can see a little paper airplane icon. That enables the teacher to send the feedback directly to the student's inbox. Which I think is really important. I've used all kinds of learning management systems over the years, and I've spent countless hours providing feedback for students, which they never ever looked at. And I think on learning management systems where the student has to log in and navigate back to the activity, and they don't actually know if feedback is there or not. Oftentimes there's no way to let them know that feedback has been given on their assignment. This is much better. It goes directly to their inbox. It goes to their university emails in my case, which will come up as an alert on their mobile phone, so they'll know right away that it's there. And then there'll be a link to the feedback that I provided, whether that's text, audio, or video. So I hope everyone is with me so far. What I'd like to do now is by far and away the most terrifying part of any of these webinars, which is I'm going to jump out of my PowerPoint and I'm going to attempt to go live, so we can see the experience both from the student perspective and from the teacher's perspective. So I'm going to attempt that right now. We'll see how I make out. Okay, I've just stopped my share momentarily here while I get to the place that I want to be.
Really enjoying the presentation so far, Elton, around the 30-day challenge. I can see how this can be really motivating, and I love how the teacher can give feedback, personalized feedback to the students, being be it written, audio, or video. I think that's fantastic.
Yes, great. And hopefully we can kind of see it from both sides. As I said, a little bit of trepidation here because I'm not entirely sure that everything will work exactly as I planned, but let's hope for the best. So I take it that everyone can see my screen again, and what they're seeing is the actual 30-day challenge. This is what students experience. So I have a little introduction, a video that helps the students sort of orient them toward the challenge. That's something that they can watch. And again, I'll be sharing this challenge with anyone who watches the webinar, so they can create an account. They can download the course and make modifications to it if they like, or run it exactly as it is. And I hope some people will do that, and perhaps even get back to me with some feedback. I'll provide my email toward the end. So what I'd like to do now is to just choose one of these challenges. I'm just going to click on the first one. I'm just going to put a name in here. I'm just going to say Joe, but this is not Joe Dale. I should point out it's just another Joe, and I'm going to put my university email in there. And if you want to be able to give the students feedback directly to their email, then this is something that would be required. You would either have to require them to put their email address in, or you would have to have them logged in with Google or Microsoft. That's an option that's available. Maybe something I can talk about in a little bit more detail toward the end. So there we are. I'm in challenge number 1. And it's much as we saw before. There is a prompt and a recorder. So all the student needs to do is to click on that recorder and record some sort of response. So I'll do that now. I'll keep it a little bit brief. Hello, my name is Joe. I am 47 years old. I am from the Isle of Wight. And in my free time, I like to do podcasts, and I enjoy traveling, especially to Ireland. Okay, now as I said before, that is definitely not Joe Dale. That's just an example that I've recorded here. As I described earlier, the student has the opportunity to play that back. Okay, so they can hear themselves.
Hello, my name is Joe.
Okay, and if they're satisfied with it, they can submit that, or they have the opportunity to record it again. I'm satisfied with that, so I'm going to submit that assignment, and I can see that my submission has been received. I can listen to it again if I like. Okay, and that challenge is basically finished. So that's all that the student needs to do. Each day they will come in here, do the next day's challenge. You can see there's a couple of columns here. One says opens and the other says closes. In this case, everything is wide open. The students can enter any of the challenges at any time they want. But if you want to run this in a really structured way, you can also have opening and closing dates for each challenge. So the challenge would only be open for a day. The student would have to do it that day, or they wouldn't be able to do it at all. I actually prefer a little bit more flexibility. So that if students fall a day behind, they can actually do two challenges and catch up. I found that that's a little bit more effective in terms of running this challenge. Okay, so we've seen it from the student side, very simple. They just need to click and then record. Let's try it from the teacher's point of view. So I'm just going to jump into to my teacher's account and quickly refresh the page. So what I should see is that there's a submission here. So the challenge was the day 1 challenge about me, and actually this little red number here indicates a new submission. That's quite handy for teachers, especially if they're coming in and checking regularly. They know when there's something new for them to take a look at. I'm just going to click on that, and I'm going to view the list of submissions. Okay, and I can see that Joe's submission is right here. Okay, so I want to look at it and I want to give Joe some feedback. So basically, I can see what Joe has recorded, okay, and I won't play it, but that's what I recorded just a moment ago. And then I'm going to respond to that, and maybe I'll do that with a video if I can. Okay. The hazards of live recording, because I'm using my camera for Zoom, I cannot use it for recording some feedback as video for the students. I suspect that might.
I think if you wanted to, you could mute your video in Zoom just while you're doing this. That's what I do all the time in webinars, and then turn your video back on in Zoom if you wanted to show us how that worked.
Oh, okay. I'll see if I can. Maybe I'll just see if I can stop my video there for a moment.
There we are. And then try loading the camera now. That should work, hopefully.
Okay. All right. There it is.
Cool.
Excellent. Okay. So I'll just record a message to Joe. Hello, Joe. Thank you very much for introducing yourself. I was happy to discover that we are actually the same age, although I have never been to the Isle of Wight. Look forward to hearing from you again with some more challenges. Good luck and keep at it. Okay, so I've done that. I'm just going to upload that, and that'll take a couple seconds, depending on your internet connection. But once that's done, then I'll be able to send that on to the student. And I'm going to try to go through all that process live, so that we can see actually what the student will get from the teacher in their mailbox. Okay, so that's done. I'm just going to save it. And then I'm going to click on that feedback. And because when I submitted, I included my email, I can send that along. So it says email sent. Right. One other little thing to note is that after I did that, a little green circle appeared around the feedback. This is another little feature that helps the teacher to keep track of who's received feedback and who hasn't. So you can see this one here is red. That one's not been responded to yet. So if I wanted to give feedback for that submission, then I would just click on it and go through the same process again. So after you've done it, it'll turn green. Good way of keeping track of which students you provided feedback to and which are still waiting for some feedback from you. Okay, so now I'm going to jump over to my email, and I can see actually here it is. Okay, so it says feedback for Joe on about me. Okay, so I know that the student will know that it's feedback for them. It'll have their name in there and the name of the challenge task. So if they just click on that link, then once again, they can see their own submission if they want to listen to that again, and then they can listen to the teacher's feedback, what they had to say about the challenge. Generally speaking, I do not score the challenges. I think just sticking with it and doing that each day is enough, but it is possible to score the students as well. And I think I would probably change the configuration here so that it didn't say score 0%. So that's something to think about when you set up these tasks. All right, so that's seeing the experience from both the student and the teacher perspective. I hope I've not gone too quickly through that. And if there's anything that Joe, that you think needs a little bit more clarification, by all means, let me know.
Okay, I think it's really clear. I think it's fantastic. Could you maybe turn your video back on now in Zoom, so we'll be able to?
Right. Okay.
That should work now. If it's okay, I was going to ask Paul from ZenGengo to maybe turn on his video right now, just maybe talk a little bit about how ZenGengo handles the data, the student data, because obviously teachers watching this will be thinking of themselves, yeah, okay, this looks fantastic. I can see how I could be taking part with the 30-day challenge using ZenGengo. But I would need to know a little bit more about whether ZenGengo is GDPR compliant, how the student data is being processed. So if it's okay, Elton, if I just ask Paul to talk a little bit about that, and then we'll come back to what you're talking about. But I think it's fantastic. I think I would really encourage everybody watching this to have a go at the 30-day challenge, to set up all the different challenges with the image, with the feedback option. I think it's fantastic. So over to you, Paul, just to talk a little bit through the piece about GDPR and how the student data is being handled, particularly for, let's say, well, from anyone in the world, but maybe I know that we have people coming from Europe, from Ireland, from the UK, as well as from Japan and from Southeast Asia. So over to you, Paul.
Of course, yeah. So when you sign up with ZenGengo for the first time, you have the ability to choose your region. Actually, maybe I can show that page. Let me just try to bring that up quickly here. So I have to log out of my account. Here we go. Okay, let me share this page here. Okay, so you can see this is our sign up form for teachers. The first thing the teachers do is to choose their region. So you mentioned GDPR there. That applies obviously to anyone who's residing within the UK or anyone who is subject to the GDPR regulations. In that case, you can select the EU, which we actually store our data in Ireland, which is good because obviously the UK is no longer in the EU. So I'm not sure if the GDPR will continue to apply there or not. But anyway, when students sign up with ZenGengo, when teachers sign up with ZenGengo, sorry, they would choose EU, and then they'll be guaranteed that the no data leaves the EU zone. And yeah, we comply with all GDPR regulations that we are aware of. We have a privacy policy that teachers can read at the bottom if they go to the website, the main website, www.zengengo.com. We can see our privacy policy is linked to at the bottom here somewhere. Here you go, this one here. So yeah, to answer Joe's question, you could just choose the region that you want, and you'll be reassured that the data is kept within the EU zone.
That's fantastic. So just to clarify, I know this is an obvious thing, but just to clarify, if you're from the UK and you're signing up for the 30-day challenge, you would then choose Ireland EU. Is that right? That's
right. Yeah. So that's the closest data server that we have to the UK. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's great. Thank you so much, Paul. I know that lots of teachers always ask questions around GDPR compliancy. So that's really good to know that if teachers want to take part in the 30-day challenge with their students, that the software is completely GDPR compliant. That's really fantastic. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah,
excellent.
And also Elton was showing before, when you set up an assignment, you can choose what information you want to collect from the students. So if you want to collect their name, you can do that, or their name and their email, or their name and their email and their student number. And you don't even have to collect their real name. If you're really concerned about your students' privacy, you could ask them to input like a nickname or something. And then, you know, we wouldn't know who that student was. So that's an extra level of anonymity that's available for teachers who want to do that.
That's fantastic. Lovely. Thank you so much, Paul. That's great. So Elton, if we go back to the presentation, but I think this is a really exciting challenge to try out in this month. I think it will be a great thing to do with students and with schools anywhere in the world, as has been said. What a great way to start off the year. Superb. So let's find out more about it, Elton.
Sure. One thing that I'll mention just before we go on, because it touches on the point that just came up, if there's an issue that a teacher has about not having access or not being able to send things to students' email, there's also an option here which you can see just on the right hand side, where there's a little link option where you can also copy the link to this feedback. I don't know how a particular teacher might approach sharing that link with the students, but that is a possibility that teachers can do if they can't send emails directly to their students. In Japan, that's not a problem, but in other places it might be. Okay, I'm just going to go to the next slide here. Maybe I'd like to take a few minutes to share, I guess, maybe some accumulated wisdom about running these challenges and how to do that effectively. I've made a few mistakes during various iterations, some of which I was sharing with Joe before we started today. I'll mention them again here. When you're doing one of these 30-day challenges, I think it's really important to have a clear start and finish date. Okay, if it's 30 days, then my recommendation would be to start everyone on the same day and finish on the same day. I think it's okay to have a few extra days because there's always some students who missed a challenge or two along the way and they want to catch them up. They really want to finish. They want to, they want to have that sense of completion. So a few extra days I think is good, but any more than that is probably just going to cause problems. Another thing that I would recommend is to do the first challenge together. No matter how great a piece of software is or a tool that you're using, there'll always be one student who finds a way to make a mistake somehow. And so it's a great thing, I think, to do the first challenge together. We did one just a moment ago, so you can see how easy it is. You can have a room full of students and they can just record for 30 seconds or a minute and submit their challenge. And then the teacher can do any troubleshooting they need to do in that moment. If feedback is going to be an important part of your challenge, then I think it's important to respond to student submissions promptly. Okay, it will lose its impact if the students are waiting 4 or 5 days to hear about some feedback from their challenge, because remember, they're doing one every day, so time moves on. They've done a whole different set of challenges by the time they're getting your feedback. So this can be a challenge for the teacher. No one said it was going to be it was going to be easy, even with a very streamlined system. That's why I like to do video myself. I find typing wears me out a little bit, but I find it not too difficult to quickly go through, have a quick listen to each student and record a really quick bit of feedback for them and send it off. But keeping on top of it, I think, is quite important. If you're in a situation where not all students are really that into it, I always run this on a voluntary basis, not only for my students, but for all students at the university. So the ones who join are usually very motivated and they want to hear that feedback. If you're just doing it with your students, there's probably a good percentage of them who actually don't really have that much interest in your feedback, in which case, when I'm doing it for a class as an assigned task, I tend to just say, if you want feedback from me, tell me. And usually 4 or 5 students will indicate that that's something that they want, and then I respond to those ones every day. For the other students, I don't do that. So that's something to consider. I also think it's really important to recognize and celebrate success. As I mentioned earlier, motivation is a really big part of language learning. And anytime that students come to the end of something, hopefully they feel a sense of achievement. Hopefully they recognize that they've improved through the efforts that they've made over the 30 days. So usually I give the students a certificate. When they finish. To all students who finish, I just print up a little certificate with their name on it, give it to them, usually in front of their peers. And it's always gone over well. So I really recommend that as well. Find some way to recognize and celebrate the students when they complete the challenge. A couple of other things I think to keep in mind, more about expectations from the teacher and managing your expectations when you run something like this. Like anything else, like any 30-day challenge that you might come across on social media, or like any New Year's resolution that a person might make, most of those who start won't finish. That's just reality. And I think it's good to accept that from the beginning. Of course, if it's an assigned task for your students, then probably most of them will finish. But in my case, I've always run this as a voluntary thing. Lots of students begin with good intentions and not all of them make it to the end. And just know that from the outset, I think is important. And the progress through the challenges can be quite uneven. Like I said, you might have students applying different levels of effort at different times of the month, maybe because they're busy or something else is going on in their lives. They might miss a couple days and then try to catch up on a weekend. That's also normal and something that I think you should just let happen. I don't think, generally in my experience, it hasn't been that helpful to lock challenges after the day has passed. I totally understand that there might be reasons for doing that. Just in my experience, that's not been the best way to manage it. To give them a little bit of leeway, in case something comes up in their lives, they're working late at their part-time job, or their smartphone battery died and they didn't have a chance to do it, things like that. Just accounting for the little things that come up in life. And for both the student's perspective and the teacher's perspective, just managing expectations in terms of how much improvement will come. Okay, it's very important that the student should see some progress if they've done the challenges faithfully over the 30 days, but it's not a miracle cure. You won't have, I would never call it a, 30-day challenge becoming totally fluent in a language. I don't think that's realistic. So that's something to keep in mind, is to just manage expectations, yours and the students. One thing that I haven't mentioned up to this point, but that I should say, is that while mine is an English-speaking challenge, this can be done in any language. The recording function is sort of language agnostic, so the students can be speaking in any language, and the teacher listening and providing feedback in any language. So it's not only for English teachers. Of course, the particular challenge that I've set up, the prompts are in English, but those can be changed and edited by the teacher as well. And that's maybe something I'll jump into in a moment. So if you're sitting here thinking that, well, this is great, but I'm not an English teacher, it really doesn't matter. You could use the prompts that I have as a sort of starting point. You could translate them into whatever the target language is, or if English is the first language of your learners, you could have them reading the prompts in English, but responding to them in Spanish or French. All of those things are possible. So there's lots of flexibility here, something to keep in mind. I think, we're getting close to the end. And I want to encourage people to try this. And so the link that's there at the moment is one that will take you directly to the course. So if you wanted to experience the 30-day challenge as a student, then you could just follow that link. You can do the challenges or whatever you like. I don't expect that that's something that a link that people would want to pass on to their students, because you wouldn't then, as a teacher, you wouldn't be able to respond to the students and monitor their progress throughout the challenge. What I think I do recommend is that people take Paul from ZenGengo up on his free trial, set up an account, download the 30-day challenge course, make any changes that you might want, and then run it with your students. That will enable you to listen to their submissions and reply with your own feedback, whether that's text, audio, or video. Paul's really helped me out a lot. I've spoken about this 30-day challenge at conferences in Japan and Korea as well. Paul helped to put together some things on the site that can make running this 30-day challenge really easy for anyone who wants to try it out for themselves. So he's created a specific page on the ZenGengo website where people can download a little guide that can help you to set it up, and just some really good instructions for how to get started with that. And maybe I'll just see if I can jump over to that page. So Paul's created this page. I hope everyone can still see my screen. So this is zengengo.com/30-day challenge. Maybe perhaps Joe or Paul can cut and paste that into the chat. But once you're there, there's a few little instructions that explain the basic process, just signing up for a free account. There's a code that you put in, input a code to import the 30-day challenge course into your account. And then just, you know, a little bit of information about how to share that with the students. Once you've got the course, you basically just copy a link and send that to your students. You can email it to them, you can put it on your LMS or whatever method you use to communicate with the students. So all the challenges can be done from one link, which I think is really handy. It's I think it's also really helpful that Paul has put together this guide, which you can download here. It looks like this. It explains a little bit about what you might achieve through the 30-day challenge, and then some nitty-gritty about actually setting it up, with some pictures in here about, well, where you want to push and how you want to configure the settings for the different things that the students can do. There's also a little bit of information in here about editing the challenges, which is maybe, I'll just quickly check. We've got a few minutes left, so maybe I'll just quickly jump back into here. Okay. And we can take a quick look at how a teacher might go about making some changes. Once they've got this course in, they can edit it in any way that they like. It won't change the main copy, if you know what I mean. So teachers can do anything they want. They can completely change the challenges or edit them in one way or another. And that's done just through the teacher dashboard here. I can see all my challenges for the 30 days. There is a way to edit them. Okay. And to do that, they just click, and there's a few different things that the teacher can do. For example, they can give the students a little bit more time, recording time, if that's what they would like. They can enable pausing, which is here to allow the students to pause. There's also a little bit of information that the teachers can share with the students afterwards, whether they see feedback or not. One thing that I mentioned earlier on was that I had a video of some example response. If you were doing a language other than English, then this is something that you would want to not show the students. If you're getting them to speak French and the model answer is in English, that's probably not desirable. But all of that is available. Okay, any changes that you make, you can preview them in here as a student. You can get links or QR codes. I generally wouldn't share the individual assignment links with students. I would actually share the course link. Then that way they're just going to one URL in order to do all 30 challenges. So that's just a recommendation. But any changes you make, you just click here and update. I don't want to update actually, because I want to keep the challenges as they are for the moment. But that's something that teachers can do. So I think that's coming close to the end. I'm maybe just going to jump back to my PowerPoint for one moment, just so I can share my email. If anyone wants to ask me any questions, I have my email there at the bottom, so feel free to reach out. I think it's not too difficult to get set up with these challenges and to do them yourself. But if you run into any trouble, I'm always happy to lend a hand.
That's been wonderful, Elton. Thank you so much. I think it's been really clear on how you set out the challenge, how it works within ZenGengo, and then your personal reflections and advice based on your own experiences, I think have been invaluable. So thank you so much. So we've got the links there, everybody. I've shared it as well in the chat. I've also tweeted about it as well. So those people on Twitter can click on the link, can read the guide and how they can get started with the 30-day challenge. I think the advice about having the one link, I think is really important, rather than sending out 30 individual links to the students. I think having just the one link, and also I think the way that you were very realistic about the way that it might be that some students fall off at the end, let's say, or don't do all 30 days, which is obviously not as one would expect, but at the same time, if everyone has a go, and particularly if this is, I mean, do you run this as a voluntary thing, or is this something which is part and parcel of your course, Elton? Is it something that's optional, or is the expectation that everyone does all 30 recordings?
I've done both. I've assigned it to my students and expected them to do all of them as part of their grade. But generally these days, I've been running it for a larger group of people as a voluntary activity. Certainly the ones who get the most benefit out of the feedback are people who have found some intrinsic motivation to go through with it. So I just find that my own interactions with the people who are doing the challenge are just of a higher quality and more rewarding for me and for them when it's a voluntary thing. But you know, I'm a teacher too. You know, you got to put grades in the grade. You got to put grades in the grade book, and you know, if you want students to do something, you know, then you have to set clear expectations for them. I think both can be fine. I think it just has a slightly different dynamic in each situation. But regardless of whether the students are doing it on a voluntary basis or whether it's something that's been assigned by the teacher, I think it's a really good way to get them to build a good habit, to practice something just for a little bit of time. It takes 5 minutes, but you know, do it in a sustained manner over a month, and hopefully the students notice some improvement in their skills over that time. That's really at the heart of the 30-day challenge, right? Is that the students need to see some progress, and if they do, that should enhance their motivation.
Fantastic. That's amazing. I mean, so two things that come to mind. I mean, the first question is, have you found, or is the feedback that students have given you that they have really found that doing a 30-day challenge like this has really improved their motivation, which has then sustained them throughout the year? Is it something that they look forward to, for example? And then the second question is, have you found that some students will take a long time on each recording? In other words, they'll record and record and record until they've got the best possible version that they can possibly produce. Have you found that has helped them as well with their speaking, their pronunciation, their confidence, etc.?
Absolutely. I think in terms of the first question, a lot of students who have undertaken the 30-day challenge on a voluntary basis often had something on the horizon a little bit further that was going to require them to sort of level up their English speaking skills. So some of them were preparing for study abroad. Some of them were taking a test where they needed to have a speaking component. A lot of students here who want to work for big companies will have an English interview as part of it. So a lot of them had that kind of thing, and they found that this was a good way to get started. You know, a structured way to practice speaking and getting some feedback from the teacher. Some students, normally, as a kind of rule of thumb for this, when I respond to student submissions, I normally respond to the meaning rather than the form. So I tend not to say, oh, you know, you said is, but you should have said are, or you should have used the past tense here. I don't do that. I normally just say, wow, you went to the zoo on the weekend. That's great. You know, that kind of stuff. But there are some students who have specifically asked for that type of correction, you know, the more fine-grained, you know, form-focused correction. So if they ask for it, I give it. So I think that answers the first part of the question. The other question, I think, was if I.
Well, essentially, do you find that some students tell you after they've submitted each video that they recorded they made the recording many times? They did many takes because they wanted it to be as perfect as possible? Because that's certainly the feedback I've received from other teachers. That's what their students have said, which is a good thing, obviously, but at the same time, maybe if they are, I mean, or maybe it could be seen as a bad thing in the sense that if they're making, I don't know, 10 or 20 takes per recording, maybe that's not ideal, and they should feel more confident in their recording. But then the more they record, the more confident they should sound. But I don't know if you had any feedback about that. Maybe that you've had someone that's recorded many times because they're such a perfectionist, and actually that's not really the idea of the task. Do you feel that it puts some people under a lot of pressure, for example?
I think you get all types, really.
Yeah.
I have a video at the beginning of my challenge, which actually just says, however you want to approach this is okay. You might want to write down exactly what you want to say and rehearse it a few times. You might want to just jot down some points, or you might want to go completely off the cuff. And I've always sort of said, however they want to approach the challenges, that's okay. Certainly, culturally in Japan, there's a lot of focus on getting it right. And I suspect that most students are recording many times before they push the submit button, and are probably doing that with a little bit of fear. I think it's possible to set this up in a slightly different way that might ease that a little bit for students. I didn't mention this before, but it is possible to set a time limit on, like, from the moment the student opens the task to the time that they must submit it. You could set a time. You could set 5 minutes or 10 minutes, so you could ensure that students didn't spend more than that amount of time on the task. Some students might feel under pressure. Some might feel a bit relieved that they could just, they just had to do what they could with the amount of time they had, and do it. So I think it's really, courses for horses.
Yeah.
I think whatever the teacher has in mind, I think it's great. In my opinion, keeping maximum flexibility is good, and let the students approach it in a way that makes them comfortable, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Everyone.
No, I agree. I
does it
think another thing that comes to mind as well is, do you when you're listening back to the recordings, do you ever get the sense that the student is reading the text? Or do you maybe sometimes recommend, because you mentioned about doing things off the cuff, do you sometimes recommend that they maybe make some bullet points, so they're not exactly reading it word by word, but they have a good idea of the structure of what it is they want to say? Or do you sort of make it very open-ended? They can choose how they want to do the prep for their recording? Because I would imagine, well, certainly when I've listened to some recordings, it's very clear that the person is reading a script. Is that what you found as well? Or do you find the more fluent sounding ones are the ones when they're either doing it off the cuff, or they've made some sort of set of bullet points, they know what they want to say, and it's not, maybe it doesn't sound as stilted as it can do when they're reading a text?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there will be lots that I listen to that are clearly being read by the students. And I think the students, they need to, part of this that I didn't talk about, but something I always encourage students to do is, yes, this is a 30-day challenge, and it's structured, and the challenges are all set there, but to take a little bit of time before you start and think about what you want to achieve from this. It's going to be about speaking. There's lots of different topics, but what kind of thing do you want to happen? Do you want to get better at the off-the-cuff, spontaneous speech? If that's what you want to do, then you should approach the challenges in that way. If, for various reasons, you just feel more comfortable providing the best, most correct version of your utterance, then, do it that way. I really think it's, in my context at least, that just keeping it open, especially when it's voluntary, and the students are kind of, bring their own motivation and reasons for undertaking the challenge with them. If you're doing it for your class, though, I think it's smart to be very structured about that. What kind of outcome do you want as a teacher? If you're trying to get them to improve that sort of spontaneous speech, then you can use the settings to facilitate that. You can not enable pausing. You can set a time limit on the overall task. Like you got 5 minutes, so you can make it short enough so that they really don't have any time to prepare, and they just have to go. So I think it's really up to the teacher, and that's kind of what I like about this. Lots of settings, lots of configurability, and a way to achieve the 30-day challenge in a way that makes sense for each teacher's context.
Fantastic. I've just got one more question that comes to mind, if that's okay, which was, you talked about flexibility. In relation to the feedback, obviously you've got the option for written feedback, spoken feedback, or video feedback. Which one do you normally go for? Or is it like, it depends on the student or what have you? Or do the students give you any feedback about what they prefer? Because I'm particularly interested in audio feedback. So without the video, just with the voice, do you find that, say, in this context of maybe when you can model pronunciation, if that's what you do, I don't know, it'd be interesting to hear. Do you find that they find that more useful, or that's what they ask for, or do they not express an opinion? Or what is your preferred form of feedback? Or does it just depend on the individual student?
The first couple times that I ran the 30-day challenge, I did audio. The students were doing audio, so I responded with audio. In fact, it was a part of the advertising that we showed to them. It's like make a recording, get a recording sort of thing. And then most recently, I did it with video, and the students definitely prefer video. They just like it. They're like, oh, there's a teacher. And in my case, because I'm doing it on a voluntary basis, and at times we can get quite a few students participating, I actually divide up the feedback among various teachers. So various teachers are providing feedback. So I'll do some of the challenges and other teachers will do others. And I think that added a little bit of interest for the students. They'd be like, oh, who's this guy? You know, they would click on that. And most teachers were also kind of encouraged in responding to the students to also kind of answer the challenge for themselves. You know, there's a challenge that says, you know, do you prefer dogs or cats? And, you know, the teacher might say, well, I'm a cat person, you know, I've got a cat. And they liked that, you know, they liked that kind of little interaction that they were getting, and they liked to see a face and to put a face to a voice.
Yeah.
That was all part of it for us. But I think definitely audio and video are stronger than written feedback for the students. And I totally understand why there's lots of people, you know, there's a few teachers who are perhaps a little bit more comfortable with just audio, but you know, we were kind of doing a little bit of action research. So we wanted to try video this most recent time. The students definitely preferred it. They liked it a lot more.
Yeah,
so that's
really,
something
really
to keep in mind.
I think it's that personalization piece, or that, as you say, just the students getting to know the teachers a little bit more in relation to, you know, a pet that they've got or what have you. I think that's really, really interesting. I think, and that's the world that we're living in nowadays, I think, as well. I think that obviously written feedback is really important, but I think that it's lovely to see how people are exploring a more, you know, multimodal approach, as you were saying, with audio and video, and ZenGengo lends itself really well to that. That's fantastic. Lovely. Okay, well, it is we've come up to the time, as it were. I just wondered if Paul wanted to say anything else while we're here, and then I'll then wrap up. Paul, was there any other points you wanted to make about the challenge or about setting up the trials or anything like that?
Hi, Joe. Thanks for that. I think, yeah, I'd just like to echo what Elton said, really. And I think it's great that he's doing this 30-day challenge with his students, and the students get a chance to get real personalized feedback from their teacher. And if you can delegate some of that work between a team, ZenGengo makes it quite easy to work within a team. So that's a really good way of doing it. And you need to find some way to motivate the students. Recently, a colleague of mine said, you know, a tool is just a tool. It's all about motivation. And I think he has a point. I mean, a tool can be more than a tool, actually, in my opinion. But I see what he was saying. Motivation is paramount, you know, and you have to have that extra motivating aspect to these language practice activities. And the 30 days, along with getting, you know, personalized feedback from a teacher, I think really provides that. So that's what I would say.
Fantastic. Lovely. Okay, well, I think it's been a really, really interesting webinar. Thank you so much, Elton, for your time, for presenting the idea so clearly, for encouraging teachers from all over the world to take part in the 30-day challenge, for the guidance from Paul as well in the webinar, as well as the explanatory PDF. I think that everyone's got everything they need to give this a go, and you know, perfect time to do that. Start of the school year, to have that individual multimodal feedback as well, to tell the students what they need to do to improve. I think it's been really, really, really useful and interesting. And I've loved your personal anecdotes and your personal reflections on what's worked for you in this context. I think it's been really, really useful. I'm also very flattered that you think I'm 47 as well, which has been great. Any final points, Elton, to wrap us up?
I just want to say thanks for everyone who took a little bit of time to come and watch. I know, you know, I'm a classroom teacher. I have been for 20 years. I know I really admire people who take a little bit of their personal time to do a little bit of professional development. And I think your students are really lucky to have you. Yeah, just thanks.
You're absolutely welcome. Paul, any final words?
I think no, from me, that's everything. But if people want to try out ZenGengo, there's a 30-day free trial, and we're quite happy to extend that a little bit for people who want to do this 30-day speaking challenge. So I think we decided to offer 50 days. So if you contact me, paul@zengengo.com, let me know a little bit about your teaching context, and we can give you an extended free trial.
That's
no problem.
And just to clarify, they could actually start this 30-day trial this month or next month or any time during the year. Is that right? Or is there a time limit on when you'd like people to start, Paul?
Oh, no, it's any time whenever they sign up for a free trial with ZenGengo, then the timer starts counting down the 30 days. So I think the 30-day free trial lines up quite nicely with the 30-day challenge, but teachers might need a little bit longer to familiarize themselves with the platform. So that's why we decided to give them 50 days if they want to do the 30-day challenge.
Yeah, that's great. So I would encourage, therefore, exactly what you just said, for teachers to familiarize themselves with the tool, and also to maybe do some prep work with the students to explain exactly how they want the challenge to work, and etc. I think that would be perfect. I think it's been lovely. I think it's been really, really interesting webinar. Thank you so much to everyone coming along. Thank you so much to Elton and for Paul for your time. I will upload the recording as per normal onto my YouTube channel, which is available at JoeDale100. I'll do that later on today. Thank you so much for this really interesting call to action for a 30-day challenge to promote speaking in the languages class, in and outside of the languages classroom, using ZenGengo. It's been really interesting. So I'm going to stop recording right now, and I wish everybody good luck with the 30-day challenge, and good luck with their new school year in general, to encourage our students to speak as much as possible in the target language, and to improve and listen carefully to the feedback they're receiving from their teachers, because that's what it's all about. Superb. Okay.